Today I'm talking with Claudia Blood. She is a fantasy and sci-fi author. Welcome, Claudia.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good.
We were just talking about the time changes and how we never know whether to go forward or backward, which I
Never.
think is a theme in one of your sci-fi books. Am I right?
I do. There's a lot of time travel and time dilation, which I find is totally fun.
Okay,
Have you ever
wait.
heard of that?
Time dilation. I may have heard of it, but I haven't
Yes.
heard that term. Tell me about it.
So it's the concept that if you get really close to the speed of light, so you as a person going really close to the speed of light, that your perception of time is different than someone who's on a planet. So you actually end up, so it might take you a year to go, but when you come back, it's 22 years difference, depending
Oh,
upon
okay.
how much of the speed of light you are. Yeah. So it's really been a fun kind of thing that I've been playing with.
Right. So you would age at a different rate and things like that, right?
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Which is the problem they had. I'm trying to remember what movie I watched. But yeah, it was a problem they had. So
Yeah.
I've watched a bunch of sci-fi movies and I'm like, okay, what movie
And they're
was
all
that?
together now in my head. Right.
Like, yeah,
Exactly.
everybody was gonna age and all their family was gonna be dead by the
They're
time they
dead
got
when they come
back.
back. Yep.
Right, yeah.
Yep. Very typical. Yeah.
It was, well, I say it was a recent movie and it could be like I missed
5.
2 years of life, so it could
Yep.
be like 5 years ago.
Yep. Or longer.
Or longer. Yes. Okay,
Yeah.
what is the name of that sci-fi book or series then?
So I have a trilogy called the Relic Trilogy, and the first book is Company Assassin. And it is set on a distant jungle planet that's company controlled. And the main character is an orphan on that planet, just aging out of the orphanage. And it's a very hostile environment for humans. And the culture around him does not make it easy on him either.
Hmm,
So, yeah,
interesting. Well, my interest is peaked. Would you say space dilation or time dilation?
time dilation.
Time
Yeah.
dilation. I'm
Yep.
adding that to my repertoire of vocabulary. Time.
I found some great YouTube videos that explain it so well because I'm like enough science, but I'm not a physicist by training. This is like,
My
me
brain is
playing.
hurting. Yeah. I asked my husband the other day if he really thought that alternate universes existed. He was like, yes. I'm like, really? He was like, yes. I'm like, okay. It hurts my brain, but I'll go
But
with
like
it.
pages on a book, right? Isn't that how they describe it? That the universes are like pages on the book and they touch all along, but the pages don't see each other. That was an explanation I had heard.
It's really, yeah, it's freaky. It's just like what is the movie with Matthew McConaughey when like all the books on the shelf, it's
Yeah.
like,
Oh, stupid brain.
yeah, yeah. Anyway, that was a good movie. It makes like bubble chill bumps form on my skin just thinking about that.
Yeah. There's been some really good ones out there.
So are you inspired by other sci-fi books or movies?
I am. And I love like a lot of the old school sci-fi. So, and okay, and I have a soft spot for like Alan Dean Foster and for like the Anne McCaffreys and like the older, but they've got such great characters and then the science and the technology behind it. So yes,
Very cool.
absolutely.
And what is
Yeah.
your background? Do you have a science background?
I have a I have a biology degree, believe it or not, and I ended up in IT consulting. And so I've been a programmer, Java developer, and a business analyst, and a program manager, and yeah.
So you have both of those skills. That's cool. And do you use a lot of your biology in your world? You talked about that jungle planet.
I do. I have some biology in there. Actually, you're gonna find this funny, but I'm one of those people that I hate zombie movies. Okay, now bear with me.
It's
So if it's magic zombies, I'm fine,
okay.
right? You got your plausible, whatever. But if it's science zombies, I'm like, your heart doesn't beat. Like, how do your muscles move? Like, you can't get the ratchet doesn't work. Like, how does that work? So, yeah.
Well, that's kind of like vampires, right? I mean, some of them their blood circulates and some of them their blood doesn't circulate. So how does that work? I mean,
How does that work?
in
Yeah.
Twilight they were stone, which I still couldn't figure out how that works either.
But if you make it magic, then I'm like, okay, if it's magic, then that's fine. I'll believe you.
I'm sort of the same way, and I don't want there to be like science zombies either, because that means like the zombies could actually come and get me, right? Or I could get a zombie disease and that would also be bad.
But there are in real life, right? Like they have those ants that are taken over by fungus and they turn into zombies and go down near where they actually hang upside down on a leaf and then the fungus consumes them. And there's some other ones like that in the animal kingdom where they actually do get taken over by something else and behave completely differently than their normal behavior. That's the stuff that the biology brings in. I'm like, oh yeah, let's bring in something creepy.
You're making me really disturbed. Is this in mammals? I haven't heard of this. Is it
no?
It's or just insects.
The two I can think of are insects.
Okay.
Yep.
I still feel sort of safe here.
Right.
Very strange things, but I think most authors do.
Well, it's fun. They always joke about, like, if you look at your internet browsing, the things you've searched for, like, the weird things that you look for. And I look back sometimes, I'm like, huh, yeah, they'd put me on a list, wouldn't they?
Yes, definitely. Very cool. So you dabble in fantasy as well. Tell me about this book.
I grew up playing Dungeons and Dragons. So I started playing Dungeons and Dragons in the 3rd grade, and I still play. My husband and I it's like our poker night. So we have friends come over and we play D&D. But I just love like the magic and the fantasy elements. So I've got the Merge series, which is the first book is Joshua Lighthouse, and it's in a world where the myth dimension and the human dimension like crushed together. And so everything is kind of crushed together, and everybody it's 300 years afterwards, and people are still trying to find their way in the world. So there's all the things from myth, all the human things, there's some science, there's magic, and it's, almost a free-for-all.
Tell me what myth is.
So in that context, oh, so it's, the Irish legends, it's, all of those, the creatures that go bump in the night, it's, all the horror things that you see, it's, maybe some D&D stuff that you're like, oh, we really need this. So it's pretty wide open. Yeah.
Okay, I got it. I tried playing D&D one time and it actually hurt my brain. So maybe I don't know, so I don't know how I write fantasy as well. But I did bring the kobold into one of my books because I was inspired by that. But I just needed an evil character, so I brought them in my fairy books. So I dabble in D&D. I don't know. I don't know what. Maybe it was just, I don't know. Maybe I could try it again.
I think the thing that I loved about it too is not only like the imagination of the world that it's in, but like the story that you're in the middle of as you're doing your campaign and all the different choices. It's almost like a real life choose your own adventure, right? Okay, a D&D and choose your own adventure. But it's just, it's fun. And then I'm always afterwards going, so wait, how did this person get over here? Like, what's the backstory on that? And the DM hates it when I do that.
You're like, no, I need another story.
No, right. Like, no.
So how did you decide to write all this down?
So for those two stories, so the Relic Trilogy actually came from two things. I had a dream about, so I had this like group of people in the jungle, and they're going through the jungle, and they come this ancient ruin. And when they go inside, they know how to turn on the machine that's inside of there. And like, it's like lightning bolts and everything else. And then there's an 80s aerobics instructor who pops in. And that, right, exactly. And I'm like, what in the world is going on here? Like, I don't understand. And so it took me a book before and then the book after to make that all make sense in my head. Yeah. So it came partially from a dream. And then the bad guy that I love, Ravine, I have children, and I had a daughter, and I had like a scare with her. And so I was thinking about, what would a mom do if she lost her daughter? How far would she go, right? Like, what are the things you would do if you thought you could get your daughter back? And so this character, Ravine, lost her daughter and decided to invent time travel, and like went through this whole like downward spiral of doing it. So, and she's the bad guy. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think being a mom, I would do a lot of things for my kids. So
she went a little further than I would. Like, as soon as it starts doing, like killing other people and slavery and things like that, I'm kind of, I think
that may have been crossed the line. She may have deep-seated issues there.
She does. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what's going to happen to her in the end? Do we get to know, or is she going to be
You do. So at the end
redeemed?
of the
Or
trilogy, you do find out what happens to her, and she makes it all the way to the last scene. So I have to, it's one of those things that you'll have to wait and see. But I was so intrigued with her. I'm actually in the middle of writing the book before that with how she got there. So it's her daughter's loss, and like the whole she ends up with like a group of women who help her take down a company and still ends up going down. Yeah. So it's going to be called Renegades Rising is going to be the series. And I've got these different women that are, they're trying to beat the system, right? And they're trying to make things better. And in her case, it doesn't necessarily like, end well for her ultimately, but so it's kind of fun.
that is fun. I like writing these backstories as well. I have this, I guess for lack of a better term, antagonist character that kind of weaves through two of my series now. They're interlocked, and I have sort of her backstory forming in my mind, because in my mind nobody can ever be truly evil, because if true
Right.
evil exists without there being a reason for there being evil, that is
Right.
too scary for me as well.
Right.
So
Yep.
I
Me
need
too.
them to have, but
Yep.
it's funny because I do talk to authors that are like, no, they're just evil. They're just evil. And I'm like,
I don't, yeah, we're all gray. I mean, everybody's all gray with darker and lighter. And then the thing with that is what was the quote? That the villain is the hero of their own story. And so everything that they're doing is justified for who they are. So it's not just, I mean, and maybe there's a small percentage of people who are just like plain evil. Hopefully it's really small. But I think everybody thinks they're trying to do something, right? They've got their goals.
right.
It's
Yeah,
just
they
their
do have
lines are
goals.
different.
Even villains need to
Yeah.
be loved.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Very cool. So I think we've talked about 2 year series. I'm at least thinking there's one more.
There is. I've got a supernatural detective agency called At the Cabin. It's the first book in that series, and I've got another one kind of on the way, maybe this year if I'm super lucky and get more productive. But the funny thing about that, it's the first book that I ever finished, and I did it as a pure like suspense with no supernatural elements whatsoever, just to kind of like get a book done. And then I rewrote it and added in the supernatural elements to it. And it was so much better. Oh, I had so much more fun with it after, adding in doppelgangers and, like crazy things like that. So, and magic and witches. So, and
Very
demons.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was reading the snippet. Wasn't there something about, tell me the snippet or tell me the basis of the story? Because there's something disturbing in there to me. And I was like, wait a minute.
It was and I've got a little blurby thing on it, but it started with a whole like the wrong person tied into the bed.
Yes.
Where the story
Yes.
came
That
from.
was a little bit different.
Yeah. And I'm like, what the heck is this story? And it turns out pretty interesting. It's not a high point for them, but yeah, it was the wrong person. My little blurby thing is strangers set up to die, an arsonist on the loose. Can an ex-FBI and dog rescuer survive the supernatural threat?
Sounds like a lot of fun.
It was fun. That was a lot
I'm
of
going to
fun to
have
read.
all your books to add to my TBR.
Cool.
So you're going to continue that supernatural urban fantasy series, right?
Yep.
What else
Yep.
do you have on the horizon here? You have your backstory of your, what was her name, Ravine?
Ravine. Yep. I've got Renegades Rising, and I'm sending, knock on wood, sending the book to the editor this week. So that would be good. And then I've also got the next book in the Merge series. I'm so scattered. So I've got 7 things half written, and I just need to kind of get them done at this point. So I blame COVID, whatever, right?
So do you write, when you write, do you write just one book at a time, or will you be writing multiple things?
I'll be writing multiple things, and I'll have an issue that so I'll start writing and writing, get super excited, and then I hit a point in the story where I back up and I'm like, something's not working here. And then I get squirrel brain. So then I'll go into something else that I'm on, and I'll write. And then I'll get the, something's not working here. And I've become a lot better at recognizing it, going, no. You got to work through what's not working, because my brain is telling me that where I think I'm going and what I've written, they don't match. Right. So I got to fix one or the other. So.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. But I guess, yeah, if you hit like a snag or you hit like a lull, you could just switch to the other project, which keeps everything running.
Right.
At least, right.
As long as you don't like, it's also sort of You have to address the issues. You can't just leave 6 really hard things at the end, or, you start questioning your life choices.
And your readers will be like, what did you do to me?
Hey, is there a book coming soon? Like, what are you thinking? So, yeah.
Super fun. Well, did you ever think you would be a writer?
Um, I had hoped, but I was definitely raised by a woman who said that you need to have something concrete that you can deal with to pay your bills, because you can't rely upon a man. That was my mom's sort of mantra. So, and writing is a really hard thing to do, and very few people actually do it as a full-time living. So yeah, like I would love to, but I'm still like, I've got kids, I've got a hubby, I've got a house, right? So you got to pay the bills. Stupid bills.
I know. It's like, when can I retire?
Right. But then like you take a vacation, and how much writing do you get done half the time, right? Like you still get the same amount of writing that you do when you're working.
Yeah, if I'm alone, I
That's
get
true.
tons. Like if I go to a conference or something like that, like on the plane, in the hotel in the evening, that is my Zen writing time. And my son's a little weird, so I apologize for that coming in here.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's my Zen writing time. But yeah, if I'm with the family, obviously my focus is on that.
Right. And even if they're not, I don't know about you, but it's like my kids fight a lot. And so hearing the fight in the background, and you're just like, oh,
No, yeah, that would be bad.
that would be bad. Yeah.
Super fun. Do you have any tips for people who are thinking about writing?
So I've got 2. So the first thing that was really helpful for me is the concept of not your cookie. Have you heard of this one?
I don't know if I've heard of it.
So this is a concept, right? That you could bake the best chocolate chip cookie ever. Like it is like the perfect chocolate chip cookie. And if you give it to someone who doesn't like chocolate chip cookies, there's nothing you can do to make them like it. Right? They are never gonna like that cookie. It's just not their cookie. And so what you need to do is make it the best that you can for whatever type of cookie you make, but not everybody's gonna like it. And make sure you find those people who like your chocolate chip cookie or whatever it is that you bake.
Right. That
Yeah.
makes total sense. Yeah. You have to
Yeah.
find your readers, your perfect readers.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then when you get feedback, if it's someone who doesn't like chocolate chip cookies, they're going to tell you to put oatmeal in it, or, whatever. And you're like, it's not supposed to have that.
Right. And that kind of has to roll off your back, and you have to realize, oh, that wasn't my
Yep.
reader. So.
Yep, exactly. And then I don't know about you, but the second thing was the whole like accept yourself, right? So if you're the type of person who needs to do a full rough draft from beginning to end, and that's what makes you feel good and keeps you writing, then work with your process. If you're the person who has to skip around and do just the scenes that inspire you, or if you need to plot it all out and do a spreadsheet, right? But make sure that you keep your forward momentum, because there's no right way to write a book. You just have to keep writing.
Those
Keep
are
it
really
going.
good tidbits. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
I
was
have scenes in my head all the time that are like in the future of where I'm writing, but I have never, like, I know the end of my book, but I've never
nice.
written the end first, which maybe I should, but I just don't for whatever reason. I just
And
don't.
go with it, right? If you're finishing books and your process is working, girl, like work it.
Very cool. Do you have any maybe spoilers or maybe little fun facts that you can reveal here for your readers?
Oh, let's see. What would be see, as soon as you said that, my mind went blank. Isn't that funny?
Maybe a title reveal or
Oh, no, I don't think just the Renegades Rising is going to be the next series. And then I think the books are going to be called Ravine, Lyra, Mouse, the Duchess, and Hostile Takeover.
wow.
So yeah, I think that's going to be the titles at this point.
5 books ahead. That is very cool. Super fun.
See
How
how
many
it all plays out.
books total do you have written?
6 right now. And so, and like I said, I've got about 7 mid-process that I'm hoping to get my mojo back. You know how you have certain things that make you productive, and then when those go away, you like struggle to try and find ways to continue with the productivity. I had that happen to me. So I had an editor that I was used to do 6 10,000 word edits a month. and I did it for years, and then she could no longer keep up that schedule, and then all of a sudden I'm floundering. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have no deadlines. Like, how do I? And I can't self deadline. I don't know if you can, but when I tell myself that something's due tomorrow, I'm kind of like, the dishes need to be done, the kids should go to the pool, or whatever. So
yeah, that's what I do. I tell my editor, I'm like, okay, this is coming. Oh, the sun is super bad. I'm sorry. And this is coming to you on such and such a day. And so that makes me work towards that
right.
goal.
Yeah, that's really good. So
yeah, I had to switch editors mid-field, and I was really scared of that. But it turned out good. It turned out that it challenged, I mean, she was somebody different, and she challenged me in different ways. And so I
nice.
think it helped my writing in the end.
Yeah.
Because I mean, you get very comfortable with the same person, and that person gets comfortable with you, right? So
Right.
it doesn't.
And then maybe they don't push you, right? Like I would love to do deeper POV, but the previous editor, like she just, that was not her thing. Like it was very much, she thought blah blah blah, right? That sort of thing. And so yeah, the new editor, I'm, knocking on wood, maybe that'll be more skill.
Oh, good. Yeah. Do
Yeah.
you write first person or do you write third person?
I write third person.
Okay.
Yep. I thought about first person, but I just I don't, it doesn't feel quite right. Or maybe I did start up first person and then I talked myself into third person. So I don't know, maybe I'll try first person again. We'll see.
Yeah, because actually I did write my first short story third person, and but I was challenging myself because I think the fantasy genre really lends itself to that. So I was trying to challenge myself to do that, and I just wrote like a 20,000 word short story third person. But my
Did
first
you
one,
like it when you're done?
yeah, I do like the story when
Okay.
I'm done, but it was harder to think about. It's just it's a different muscle, I think, than
Right.
just thinking about your one character and what they're thinking and what they're feeling.
Right.
And it was third person definitely, but there weren't like 80 million characters, obviously, because there was a short story, so it was only two main characters. So I think that helped keep it smaller and keep me going on that. Yeah,
that's cool. And I've been having an issue not an issue, but I've discovered with the Relic Trilogy that I really like the multiple POV. And so then suddenly, like, I'd start writing a chapter, I'd be like, oh, this is in the wrong POV. Oh, I guess Z gets a POV now. Okay.
yeah. So that's the thing. Like, I did write one book that was switched back and forth between two point of views. So there was two teens, a male and a female teen character that switched back and forth, but continued the story. But you wouldn't want to get too many because then I feel like readers would get confused.
Right.
So that's when you have to go to that third person, right?
Right. Yep. Absolutely. And I do think too, there are some authors that do such a fabulous job. Like you get it, the first paragraph and you're like, I know who this is, right? Like I know who this is. And then there's others that you're reading and you're like, oh, wait, who was this again? You have to go to the beginning of the chapter and say who? Oh, okay.
Yeah. That would be a challenge if there was too many points of view and you didn't do it exactly.
And you didn't do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Of
But
course,
it is very nice.
My husband read that book that was that dual point of view book, and he was like, no, you lost me. And I was like,
oh, okay. You're like, ah.
But I did change their names too because they had to go into hiding. So it was the combination of those. He was like, you changed their name, but you lost me.
Yep.
And I was like, okay, well, but
or if they're named too similarly, like if you have two things that like begin with the same letter and they're kind of the same, like my poor pea brain can't keep them apart. So, I go and going, oh, which S person is this?
That's funny now. I can't even remember what their pseudo name or their pretend names were. Now that was a couple years back, but yeah, it's funny. I know their real names, but yeah. Anyway, you can do that. So, and some people will be fine with it, but I guess that did not work for him.
Right. It's the cookie again, because some people love that. I mean, they want to see like the breadth of the world instead of like, the really deep. So yeah.
It was interesting because I wrote the book because I did a book club at a high school, and I would just ask them, hey, what else do you guys want to see, or what do you like? And they said, oh, we like it when it's back and forth between the point of view, so both of those people's point of views. And that's sort of why I like pushed myself to do it with that story. So obviously there is a market for it.
Yeah. Yep. It's the cookie. Yeah.
Tell everyone where we can find you.
The best place is claudiablood.com, and it links out to all the other social media. I'm on Facebook, and I watch Twitter. I don't participate too much, but and Instagram, and the list goes on.
And do you have a newsletter that people can sign up?
I do, and you get a free short story too about a witch if you're interested at a supernatural daycare, actually. So, but it's also at the website, and there's I do a monthly newsletter and do some behind the scenes stuff and some free short stories and things like that on the newsletter. So
Fun. That sounds super fun. So are the kids at this daycare supernatural, or just the witch is supernatural?
the kids are supernatural. Yep. Yep. All the
Fun.
kids are. Yep.
Have you tuned into the Legacy series
I haven't, no.
on Netflix? So it's the follow-up from the Vampire Diaries and the originals. But
Okay.
yeah, they have a school for supernatural kids. That's why I
Oh.
thought that. But obviously there are several series that did that.
Several series, yep. And these are kids. So this is like I had kids in daycare, and I wondered, God, what would this be like if it was actually like not only little itty bitty kids, but they're all like supernatural. Like, how do you keep the vampires away from the, like mortal enemies away from each other? And then when they have night hours, and how do you keep them magically protected? And how do you like I started going down that path. So
yeah, having a 2 and 3-year-old with like, yes, blood issues or spilling their magic everywhere would be
right.
very challenging.
Would be very challenging. Yeah.
Because normal 3-year-olds are already very
Already
challenging.
bad enough, right? Yep.
Well, super fun. And you said claudiablood.com, correct?
claudiablood.com. Yes, ma'am.
And thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. It was so much fun.
I enjoyed it as well.